Hey everybody, it's Jonathan Jaros with Heart of the Lakes. I want to welcome you to another session of Ramble and Mosey. As always, coming to you mostly live or pre-recorded live on a number of your favorite podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all those good things. So usual request, when you get a chance, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and follow us. Today we have a guest who I got to know maybe about 6-7 months ago. During some time I spent in Detroit. Joining us today is Ian Solomon. Ian is one of those people who wears not just one hat at a time and owns a bunch of hats, but he actually wears all of his hats at the same time, which makes him not only incredibly dynamic, but also the breadth and depth of his work pretty dynamic as well. So Ian, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to butcher all these descriptions and then going to ask you to clean them up a little bit. So I know you from your work with the Detroit Parks Coalition. You're also an award-winning MFA artist, currently in a residency. You also have your own show on Great Lakes Now, Ian Outside. And then your advocacy work outside of Detroit Parks Coalition goes under the banner of Amplify Outside, which is an effort to get more folks who aren't historically or typically outdoors in Detroit in the area. That is like 4 people. When do you sleep?
Not much, honestly. I'm pretty much going to sleep and waking up and I'm outside. But the best part about all of these hats is that they all work together. So it's not one of these things where, oh, I'm over here and it's taking me from this. They all really feed each other. So it's been really natural, and I'm really grateful that just kind of this authentic passion I've had has kind of led me into this road where I'm able to wear 6 hats at one time and, still sleep. I still get to bed, but it's definitely everywhere all at once, it feels like.
Right on. Yeah. Everything all at once, everywhere all at once. Sigal and Alex from DPC joined us a few episodes back, and we got to do kind of a deep dive into Detroit Parks Coalition's work. You are their communications director, correct?
Communications and engagement manager is the official title.
Better yet. No, I think that's always important, is that it's less about what's getting pushed out and how people are being brought in as well. But what actually I find really exciting, so we caught you in the middle of an artist residency. What's happening there?
Yes, so I'm at Cedar North right now. I'm actually their inaugural resident. So they are an arts farm and garden experience in Cedar, Michigan, about 20 minutes away from where we are now in Grand Traverse or Traverse City. And yeah, they gave me access to a gallery, which I use as my studio, as well as the Airbnb on their property. I'm able to stay there for the month and essentially just make. And I'll have a solo show that opens later this spring with everything that I've been working on there this time. So it's been really nice. I've never had the ability to engage with winter and the wilderness in this way before. And the best part has really just been this intentional relationship I've had with the changing seasons and being able to notice that every day. It's brought so much into the art, as well as just so much into me as a person. I feel like my nervous system is regulated. Like it feels like, able to just create and engage with the outdoors outside of city life, which I don't think is made for winter. It's been a good 3 weeks.
I don't remember where I heard it before, but there is something to that, where apparently our nervous systems, it takes at least 3 days for the nervous system to start to deregulate. And then it takes like 2 weeks plus for the system to start to reconfigure. So people always talk about, like I went on vacation for a weekend, but I don't feel rested. Well, they didn't, right? Like nothing actually kind of deregulated. And it's only after that long experience that the system starts to change.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say like, this is the second residency I've had. I had the opportunity to spend 3 months actually kind of tucked in the woods in Saugatuck, Michigan in 2023. And as far as the conversation of nervous system regulation goes, the hardest thing was coming back to the city and having to drive on freeways. Like I had the hardest time those first couple months just taking in everything that it was. So yes, just extremely happy for the quiet right now.
Yeah, re-entry is a real thing. Yeah, a hard thing. Yeah. So how when you go into a residency like the one you're in now or the one in Saugatuck, Do you use that time how do you use that time? Do you come in with an idea of what you want to work on, or do you let it sort of evolve as you're there? How does that work?
It really depends on the residency. In this case, I came in vaguely knowing that I wanted to do some work with Idlewild, Michigan. And so that's the historically black resort town in Michigan, right outside of, more people are familiar with maybe Baldwin or Cadillac, and it's in that area. And so being only about an hour away at this residency, I wanted to take advantage of having some pretty relatively quick access to the space. So since coming in, I've just been going back and forth to Idlewild and I made a social media post about it, and it went completely viral on multiple platforms. I am inundated with DMs from community members. I've been on phone calls, Zoom meetings. It's the past 3 weeks have been like a crash course on Idlewild, as well as like building that archive. So it's almost distracting because I feel like I haven't been making that much art, just learning, but that's a part of the art as well.
I know for myself, it's been fun to watch. So part for those listeners, Ian also does a great job at letting you into his journey, his artistic journey and his explorations. So I think for me, what's been a lot of fun is actually watching and learning with you as you're sort of moving through places, or sometimes maybe where you don't want to be. It's been kind of fun to be on that journey with you. So really excited to see what the end products are too.
Thank you for following along. I appreciate it. That's something I told myself this year. I'm going to be consistent in sharing the journey because I get to do some fun things. So it's nice get to spread it around.
Well, I think it makes it feel like I'm with you, right? Like we were joking before we went on air that one of them that was one of my favorites was sort of the snowshoe hike that went wrong, so to speak. And it's sort of like, oh, I'm there with you because I know what it feels like to not want to still be stuck, kind of thing. But yeah, or bitter cold in Calumet, some of those things too. So.
Yeah, and that's just what I've realized is a part of that's how Amplify Outside started, right? It wasn't supposed to be a full community organization. People just saw me posting where I was going in Michigan, and enough people were DMing me for more information where I said, I might as well make an Instagram page for it. And it really just spiraled out of control in the best way possible. So really a lot of that work is just showing people, hey, this is exactly what this experience is like. Because most people are just scared. There's kind of this mystery around it. So dismantling that mystique around the outdoors, around Michigan spaces is what I love to do.
So for folks that aren't familiar with Amplify Outside, you kind of just shared the origin a bit. Mm-hmm. What is it for someone who's just learning about Amplify Outside? What is it? How can they engage, or what would you like them to take away from it?
Absolutely. So Amplify Outside is a community organization that, as I mentioned, somewhat accidentally started in 2021 that is really about engaging Black Michiganders, specifically Black Detroiters, because that's where I'm based and, that's home, into Michigan's natural spaces. So it started with just highlighting different places to go and starting to dismantle that mystique around all of these wonderful places you can go in this state. And it really expanded into community events, really bringing people together. So we've had group hikes. We've had, really excited to bring it back this year, outdoor sound baths, which really bring that healing element of the outdoors into play, which I think is really important, especially when we're talking about Black Americans in the outdoors. There is a lot of trauma that has to be addressed there. So yes, it's really fun to hike, but we also have to address some of these harder issues. And so we kind of do that in a lot of ways. We've, like I said, sound baths, group hikes, and just this past December, as a part of my solo show, City Wild, we had a environmental justice panel where we had different people in Detroit that were in the EJ space, maybe in different ways, to really talk about all the things that they do, how to get involved, here's some resources, and here's how these things kind of weave into each other. Because I think a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Detroit and what it needs, but it's not necessarily prioritizing an environmental lens. And I'm of the belief, and many people in the city are of the belief, that that's the priority.
I love that. I think that the way it's been framed to me a lot of times is that there's a lot of folks who have good intentions for Detroit, whether Detroiters or outsiders, but don't take the time necessarily to sort of understand the experience of being a Detroiter from that vantage point, right? So like, oh, you should do X, you should do Z, this is going to be great, like it'll be fun. That's sort of your experience, not what someone organically might want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a million great things to say about Detroit. And I think that's kind of the hard balance to strike when you're someone who wants to champion Detroit in a responsible manner, is that there's these amazing things and there's so many things we still got to get right. So you never want to just show one side because it's not accurate and it doesn't do the city any justice.
Well, that's always been my family's from the city, and both sides of my family are from the city. And ended up explaining to some older relatives the Detroit versus everybody sort of slogan. I was like, you can talk trash about your own family, but as soon as an outsider talks trash about your family, like it's game on. Like there's no, like, you don't mess with family. And a lot of times I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting to me also, we had some friends from Cleveland, from a couple different Cleveland-based organizations who were very positively trying to make some comparisons to other communities in the Great Lakes region. And they sort of like lumped, very well-meaning, but lumped Cleveland and Indianapolis and Detroit and Chicago, kind of all into, and Pittsburgh, all into the same bucket. And we really started to break down a little bit, not just the history, but also the current demographics and current context, current governmental situation. And Detroit really, in a positive way, really falls out as an outlier. It can't be lumped into those others. We might lump it in based on industry, but the population is much more dynamic and invested and interested, I think, than a lot of those other communities.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what makes this work in Detroit so exciting, is that demographic reality that it's the blackest municipal city in America. Within what's regarded as one of the most climate resilient spaces in the world. And so when we come to these conversations and understand that climate crisis will disproportionately affect communities of color, but you have this major community of color that you don't see anywhere else within this climate resilient space, what exactly does that mean there? And I think that's why it's so exciting that there's so much energy in Detroit around environmental justice, because I think that really is the target.
Yeah, and not to get too deep into politics early on, but I think the other piece that was both terrifying and also cringeworthy was listening to our current president previously, describe to other places in the country that they don't want to be like Detroit. And again, you got that sensation from not just Detroiters, but from Michiganders. They're like, you don't mess with family. Like, man, like you can say what you want, but you don't mess with family.
Right. And I'm glad Michigan stuck up for Detroit, because that's one of the things. There's a little tension between the city of Detroit and the broader state of Michigan. A little tension might be generous to say, but that is one of the opportunities of, again, environmental justice, is bridging those two things together, because that's something we all need to be on the same page about.
I know you travel a lot around the state of Michigan and around the Great Lakes. If someone is either on a layover in Detroit for an extended period of time, or maybe they have an overnight that they want to be able to do, where are some of the places in the city that you would send them to? What are some of your pride points that they should check out?
Ooh, I have to say our parks, and not just because I work for the Detroit Parks Coalition, but Detroit has really, really incredible urban parks. Belle Isle, of course, is famous. It is the second most visited state park in the country, only behind Niagara Falls, which is a wonder of the world. So I think Belle Isle stands its own there. But we also have Rouge Park, which is huge. We have Palmer Park, which has virgin forests. We have really accessible green spaces that are really dynamic. And I always suggest people go there, because I don't think it's something that you get in most major cities. There are a lot of other major cities that are regarded as outdoor recreation havens that really do not hold a candle to what Detroit has within its city limits. So I would say enjoy the Motor City, get to see some of the steel, but also shift your perspective, because it's a very green city as well.
There was, it's a little outdated now, but there was an Outside magazine article several years ago that heralded Dayton, Ohio as the outdoor recreation capital of the Midwest.
Wow.
No shade on Dayton, but I think we do better.
Yeah. I mean, there was the Michigan Trails magazine last year released a list of trails, and I believe it does it annually, never lists a Detroit trail. There are tons in the city. And so, it just all comes down to perspective.
Yeah, perspective, perception.
Mm-hmm.
assumed risk also, which I think is part of it too. It's that changing narrative is something that we need to continue to, and I say this from my seat as a white, middle-class, middle-aged male, but we need to change that perception of more folks to think about what the opportunity is, not what a story is that they heard, past tense.
Absolutely.
Ian, you mentioned that you also just finished an exhibition from your first residency. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So the exhibition was at Playground Detroit, and it went by the name City Wild. So all of my work really talks about bridging this gap between Detroit and natural spaces. And so I really wanted to take the opportunity to do that through the artwork. And I have a collage practice primarily. So I really do have that ability to bring things together and put them in one place and start conversations from that. A lot of what I did was taking the landscape archive that I've collected over the years, going all around Michigan in all of the seasons, and started to build an archive of Detroit infrastructure. One of the experiences I have while exploring these places is going to a waterfall, say, and seeing this abundance of water coming down. I can't help but then think about the water infrastructure in Detroit, or the fact that there is a Flint, Michigan that went through all of their water issues. And so there's this larger conversation between the infrastructure of cities and natural spaces that I think a lot of people aren't connecting. In particular, when we talk about communities of color and the climate crisis, in Michigan, for example, we are in a climate resilient space. However, through historically racist systems and policies, Detroit's infrastructure has been disinvested in. And so what that does is kind of deny the citizens of Detroit this safety that the land that they're on has provided for them. You know, we've had some pretty bad rains come through, and yes, the rains are bad, but don't let them convince you that they were not manageable. Communities across Michigan didn't have the flooding that Detroit did in 2021. It was Detroit, and there was a reason for that. So bringing into the art space these gorgeous landscapes, but also these infrastructural realities of the city, and talking about where they meet was really important for me.
No, that makes a ton of sense, and I think that circles back also to your earlier comment around sort of how trauma ends up being embedded. It's not a singular occurrence that just happened and then everyone is supposed to sort of get over it. It's oftentimes repeat circumstances, repeat situations, and that's part of that kind of that it's not just a narrative, but that cycle of like, okay, if we can recognize it, that should also mean that we should be able to start to affect it. And I love how you're doing that through your art, and then also, frankly, also how you're thinking about it spatially, right? I mean, because that's a visual connection that not many people have the ability to make. They might think about it on a piece of paper if someone read it to them, but to see it and then to feel it in the same way is pretty impressive.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I love taking advantage of the freedom art gives me to do this. Being involved in more organizational community work, there are so many logistics in the way of actually bringing people and places and ideologies together. So I don't want to say it's easy, but it's almost like a breath of fresh air to be like, oh, I'm just going to put this picture on top of this picture, and now the conversation happens.
Sure.
Just like that. So yeah, I'm always grateful that I'm able to use art to express this part of myself, or else I think I'd be a lot more frustrated as a person.
Tell me, if you will, a little bit about what you're seeing. Let's think about people for a second. So in terms of the kinds of things that people want to do, and this is such a broad, horrible stereotype because I don't know who people are and I don't know what things are, but if we're thinking about the kinds of outdoor activities that you're seeing trending, or either that's opportunities or areas for improvement, those kinds of things, what are you feeling for, I'm going to say Detroit-ish, because I also think that that's part of the dichotomy that's artificially created is, you cross 8 Mile and you're no longer in Detroit. And the reality is that's a hard line. That's not the cultural reality. So in Detroit-ish, because I don't have a better term, what are you seeing for trends? What are you seeing that people are demanding that might not be there yet? And what kind of opportunities are they looking for?
People are really looking for community opportunities outside. So yes, invest into outdoor spaces and green spaces to make them nice for when people get there, but also they're looking for opportunities to build community within these spaces. And I think that spans from outdoor recreation all the way to things like entertainment and dining. I think there's a trend across the country where we're starting to take a more European style of cities and entertainment where people want more outdoor space to just hang out because they understand that being outdoors actually makes you feel a lot better. So across the board in Detroit-ish, people are really looking for connecting and nature, fresh air and people. It's really that simple. And I think it just comes from we've spent the past 5 years in a vastly changing world that has made us really independent, that has made us somewhat fearful of spaces and each other. So I think there's a really wholesome way to connect through parks or outdoor spaces that people are really taking advantage of.
Feels like there's maybe a generational swing also, which I think is maybe my bias, but feels like the idea of what was once sort of heralded as I'm going to go out into the wilderness and find solitude. Sometimes that's useful, but I think it feels like what we're seeing is a shift towards the idea that solitude is more debilitating necessarily than that community building within a space. My favorite phrase I've been hearing a lot of lately is run clubs, not nightclubs. This idea that first choice is for community, which probably includes the outdoors and some recreation of some kind. But the driving factor, as you just well pointed out, is community. It's not the performance. It's not an athletic pursuit. It's where can I be with people and enjoy the spaces with people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in the context of wilderness, people a lot of times need community. So some people do seek solitude, but I'll say that typically is a more white male perspective of the outdoors. Most people I talk to are like, I will not go anywhere out there alone, actually. A lot of what brought Amplify Outside this attention was the fact that people were begging for the opportunity to connect with the outdoors, outdoor spaces, but simply were not comfortable doing it without community. So it's an opportunity to make friends, but it's also an opportunity to feel safe in a space that has been told to you is not for you, that we know is not true, but narratives are powerful. I'll say this. Within City Wild, the solo exhibition, I had a wall of 100 Polaroids of landscape across Michigan, and I had these custom-made steel frames for them in the shape of a Polaroid, and I patinaed them to make them look like copper, iron, and steel. One of the reasons I did that was because after going to the UP so many times and have experienced so much of Michigan, there is something as a Detroiter, as a Black Detroiter, about the UP that actually makes me feel more comfortable than the Lower Peninsula. I find that my connection with the communities, the people there just feel a little different. And one of the conversations I was having with a local organizer who had experienced some organizing opportunities up in the Upper Peninsula as far as labor goes is that Detroit and the Upper Peninsula have similar histories of labor and immigration. Going around the Lower Peninsula, you find that a lot of these spaces or cities that you go to enjoy the outdoors are a little more vacation-y, a little more second homey, to say the least. And when you go to the Upper Peninsula, those people live there and they work there, and their mothers and grandparents work there, and they worked in the mines. Like, there is just a grit that I think is really, it resonates with me as a Detroiter. And as far as the issues that both of us will face as this climate worsens, I think we're in very particular spots as Michiganders that other Michiganders are not in. I think about last winter when I went up to the UP and wanted to snowboard, and we kept having to reschedule because there was no winter. The Copper dog sledding event that I went to last week was canceled last year because there was no snow. That really hurts the UP in ways I don't think the rest of the state feels as far as economy and what their economy relies on. And Detroit is dealing with infrastructural issues that the rest of the state often is not dealing with. So I do believe they represent two working class communities in the same state that have very different cultural experiences, but similar histories, which lead us to similar futures. And I think we should really be learning from each other and connecting through that, because we got to stick together.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly well put, right? The history of suburban development in Michigan in particular has led to, and I like how you framed it as well, sort of vacation-y places, right? I work during the week to get in my car on the weekend to drive 2 hours to go somewhere. And when you live in the somewhere, that makes all the difference. Conversely, one of my favorite experiences still at Belle Isle is watching on a Friday night in the summertime, watching the various wedding parties roll in, and you can tell how far away, which suburb they came from by the time they arrive, right? So we're gonna get our wedding photos at the Scott Fountain. And at like 4:00, it's first ring suburb. And by the time it's 7 or 8 o'clock, it's like Waterford and Flint has finally arrived to take their wedding photos. But it's just that idea, right? Of like, this is home. I recreate here. I live here. I can serve here. I want to be here and invest in here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Detroit Park System. So I'm going to put you on the spot though. In addition to Belle Isle and Rouge Park, what are some of the hidden nuggets that folks need to go see and experience and help steward that they may not be as aware of? And we talked a little bit early on about places like Ella Fitzgerald, for example. What are some of those places that don't get the big shiny lights that folks need to know about?
Oh, there's so many. So Detroit has 300 parks.
300?
300, over 300.
Wow.
I'm being, keeping it conservative.
Yeah.
Over 300 parks. So that is a big question because so many of them have so much to offer. I think of an O'Hare Park, which is a larger neighborhood park in Northwest Detroit, which has a hiking path through it with woods, and you just would never expect woods off of 8 Mile, but there they are. I think of Eastfield, I might butcher the name a little, Eastfield Consortium Park, I believe. There's a sculpture there by Jordan Weber, I believe the artist is. And this park is on the east side, a few blocks away from a Chrysler auto plant. And this sculpture is, I don't know how tall it is, but it is very tall, very beautiful, and there are lights at the top. And what these lights represent are the air quality in the area at the time. And things like this are in Detroit parks all over the place. Like I said, there are over 300 of them. So that is a huge question. I guess I would say...
Okay, I didn't realize it was that unfair of a question. Yeah. So that's totally on me.
Yeah, I just don't want to miss anyone. And even working at this job, I have not been to all 300. So I could name all my favorite, and there are ones that would just never make the list.
Well, I think you get a pass on that one, right? I mean, that could actually be its own art project. Is a day in every one of Detroit's parks over the course of a year would be amazing. No, you mentioned O'Hare, for example. I mean, I remember the first time I learned about some of the current work in O'Hare, and immediately before I even was able to say hi, hello, I was being invited to scare at O'Hare, and I was told about the trail through the woods, and you're not going to believe this, but we're like interior forest, and how amazing is this? And those are the kinds of stories that I wish more people in Detroit, in Michigan, across the country knew about, because that is not the narrative that has been projected.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on team think of Detroit as you think about Denver. I think Detroit's actually earned it more than Denver has, if I'm being honest, because it is this incredible green space on its own. We can talk about the Great Lakes and how many gorgeous opportunities we have for outdoor recreation across the state, but again, there are just not many cities like Detroit that have that opportunity for green space within that city. And especially when you're talking about doing the work of addressing environmental racism and connecting Black people to green spaces, here we are in the blackest municipal city in the country with an incredible amount of green space. So that is a narrative that I think should be pushed to the forefront.
If you'll permit me, I want to maybe pull on a couple of threads that you just identified there. Well, I mentioned before, my families are from Detroit. I would be disingenuous to say that I'm a Detroiter. There's definitely an inside-outside, it's still family, but there's definitely an inside-outside sort of approach, which I think is fair. What I don't think is fair is what we see from some surrounding communities in terms of, I guess, what we could probably only describe in many cases as overt racism. So if you'll permit me, as a Black Detroiter, I'm certainly not going to ask you how that feels, but it can't feel good. So how do we continue to evolve the thinking, the suburb city thinking, into one that is Detroitish, not you've crossed this road and now you're in a community where you're probably not welcome?
So I don't concern myself with that. I refuse to, because there's nothing I can do about it. We've spoken, and this is coming from a perspective of someone who was 14 when Black Lives Matter started, and I've seen what a decade of really intentional, honest, vulnerable conversation leads to. And at the end of the day, if someone wants to be racist, they're going to be racist. So my concern is speaking to my community and empowering them to feel that they have the agency and confidence to move throughout the spaces they have a right to, regardless of that racism. Because if we try and focus on shifting the narrative to someone who's already decided what their narrative of us is going to be, that's a waste of time. And I just want to be efficient in everything that I do. So to me, it feels more efficient to talk to my community and say, here's what you can do for yourself. I'm going to leave that up to you, to change the suburbanites' mind, because we got better things to do on this side.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being open on that. I'm often impressed by the sheer time and effort. Left, right, doesn't matter. Christmas lights. I'm often impressed. It does matter, but I'm often impressed by the sheer time and effort that individuals will put into making sure you know what their beliefs are. And to your point, sort of driving down the road, when I see a billboard for a particular candidate or a particular political figure, I'm sort of like, cool, but I don't think I would take the time and energy to put up that much time and energy to put up a billboard in my front yard, just so you know what my values are. I think I'd much rather live them. And obviously not everyone shares the same values, but that idea of being welcoming and open doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost you time. Doesn't cost you any effort. It's free, frankly. And yeah, we're one state, like it or not. I like it. I know you do too, but we're one state, and may take a long time to get from point A to point B, especially in bad weather, but it's Michigan. It's Michigan.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. We are Detroit, but Detroit, Michigan. And Detroiters have a long history of, and it makes sense, right? Holding that pride. A lot of people will say, I'm not a Michigander, or I'm not from Michigan. I'm from Detroit. These are two separate spaces. And that's really the mission of all of my work, is dismantling that. And not because I don't understand it as a point of pride, but because I understand it as a risk to the survival of our community. Again, we are the blackest municipal city in the country and the most climate resilient space, arguably, in the world. How do we make sure that we have stake and are sitting at the table as it pertains to our natural resources, as it pertains to our energy, how we get what we need from the space that we are in? So I understand the desire from Detroiters to separate ourselves from the greater Michigan, but we are shooting ourselves in the foot in the present and especially the future.
Ian, as a professional communicator, an artist, and an advocate for parks and trails and open space in Michigan cities, in particular Detroit, are there media tools that you've used that you feel others could pick up and run with? Obviously, social media channels like TikTok, Instagram, and others work well, but is anything really stuck that you would maybe point others to in terms of advocating for their city and their community?
I'll say social media has been a really great tool as far as immediacy and urgency. I will say, Instagram, TikTok, it definitely has stuck as far as a way to reach my community when I need to. And a big part of that is being very specific about who you're talking to. So when you're doing this work, get as specific as possible through any media channel about who you're talking to, why you're talking about it, what you're talking about it, where does it take place, right? The 5 W's of journalism. what that does is just allow people to root themselves into the cause in a way that's as dynamic as it should be. Beyond social media, I really appreciate the ability to make art about this. Art can be so evergreen. Art has so much history, especially photography. We're talking about landscape photography in particular. That's the root of the history of photography is landscape photography. And really that root is one of colonialism. If folks don't know, that was one of the greatest tools of westward expansion and manifest destiny was landscape photography. People were able to go and show this beautiful landscape and seemingly no one was there. Just out of shot is the communities that already exist there. And so being a photographer today, working in landscape, and I've talked about collage and how I'm able to place people into spaces, having that power to reach people in such an expressive way that is both current and contemporary in my sense, but also addresses that historical wrongdoing of the medium has been really important, really critical for me. And it's made me feel like, because like I said, social media, it's fast, it's urgent, and that's really great. But it feels nice knowing that even here, I'm able to talk about the art itself and that art exists and people can engage in it in such dynamic and expansive ways.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of the work that was done in Detroit by Moses a number of years back. And one of the first lessons that they taught us at the time was just show up and listen. Because the problem that you think you're trying to solve may be a problem, but it's probably not the root of it. So if you want to increase access to parks, transportation. If you want to increase access to parks, money, entry, right? It's not the actual park and the desire to be there that's the challenge. And so that's stuck with me over the years because it's just this idea of like, as myself a park advocate, I want to do, and it's the thing that I want to do maybe not be the right place to enter.
Absolutely. It's not the sparkly thing at all. Talking about bus stops is not as fun as sand dunes, but it's got to be done.
You mentioned to me a new coalition you're working on is the Black, Green, Brown Coalition?
Black, Brown, and Green.
Black, Brown, and Green Coalition.
Yep. So in Detroit, we have started a new coalition of organizations within the city that are focused around environmental issues and ran by supporting Black or brown folks. One of the most amazing things getting into this work over the past few years has been realizing just how many organizations there are in the city of Detroit attacking environmental justice specifically for Black and brown people in just such a dynamic list of ways, whether it be farming, outdoor recreation, conservation, hunting, what have you. There's no need for more organizations, we realized. It's more so a need for more of a system between us to really amplify all of our work and really bring to the forefront all of those invisible lines that connect our work to the broader experience of a city. So Black, Brown, and Green, we've had now 3 events. We hold them seasonally, so we're almost at a full year, which is mind-blowing. Time is flying. And what it has been is just hosting these happy hours. We've hosted them at Valade Park, which is a riverfront park right outside of downtown. We've hosted them at an agricultural center owned by Michigan State. It's in the middle of a West Side neighborhood, but they had a pizza brick oven there. And so we had a pizza party nice. Outdoors, campfire pizza party situation. We had one at Motor City Wine where we're really just inviting people and saying, hey, if you are Black or brown and interested or involved already in the green space, please come here, please build community. And it has been genuinely such a joy over the past year. Every single event has been packed out. It is just really amplified just how much people are really looking for this work, really looking for this community. And yeah, it's amazing to see us all come together with this same mission that we're all attacking in different ways.
So for individuals and for organizations working in that space, how do they get looped into this?
So I would follow a couple Instagram pages. So one being Amplify Outside. So that's at Amplify Outside. The second being at Black to the Land Coalition. So Black to the Land Coalition is like an evergreen Detroit organization that has really, really held it down for a long time in the city as far as connecting Black and brown folks to the outdoors go. They're really based out of the Rouge. They also run, I don't know if you've heard of the Sugar Bush in Rouge. For listeners unaware, there is a park in Detroit named Rouge Park, and every winter you can go and tap maple trees and you can enjoy maple syrup from Detroit parks. And that's something that Black to the Land Coalition has really led. And they've also been really, really good at prioritizing a narrative of Black and Indigenous collaboration and allyship. And I think that's also really, really important in the context of this conversation. So yeah, at Amplify Outside, at Black to the Land Coalition, there's also a great new hiking group that's popped up I want to shout out called the Black Pack, ran by Candace in Detroit. So there's so many things. And through following those pages, you're going to find them all, especially Black to the Land. We're doing it systemically where we collaborate on posts now. So we're all under one name and this and that. So if you follow one of those three that I just listed, I'm sure you'll find many more.
Ian, thank you seems too small. So I want to thank you, though, for your work personally. I want to thank you for your work professionally. I know those two aren't separate, obviously. And everyone can hear that and how you describe not just your work, but your life. So I do want to thank you. I want to thank you for your time today as well. I've learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot, hoping I can keep learning from you. And I know others will as well. Thank you again for joining us for an episode of Ramble and Mosey. Reminder that support is provided by the Conservation Fund and the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, with support from Anna Moya and Parallel Solutions. So I'm Jonathan Jaros. Thank you again to Ian for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.